In our last session, we introduced the idea that we have a relationship with Father God where we have a protective Father, where some of our own experiences maybe have left us feeling unsafe. We have a God who wants us to know the security and the protection of a loving Father. And I want to suggest that some of the reasons why these things happen, why fear begins to overtake us, or why we begin to maybe doubt that sense of being in a relationship with a protective Father, is rooted into some of our experiences where our needs are not being met. What do I mean by that? Well, many of us are probably familiar with the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow was a psychologist who introduced the idea that for human beings to exist, we go through this sense of a pyramid of reactions. And at the very bottom, base level, are our physiological needs. Every single one of us has a basic set of needs that need to be met. The need to breathe. If we're underwater, we can't breathe. The need for food, for drink, for shelter, for sleep, to be clothed. These are basic human physiological needs, and if those needs are not getting met, nothing else is able to be built on top of that. We can't actually go forward to know a sense of being safe if those needs are not being met. And I think for many of us, where those needs are threatened, that's where we begin to struggle. After that, we move into what might be called the safety needs, where we have that sense of shelter, need of security, employment, resources, health. These things build on top of that foundational level of our physiological needs. And we need to meet those needs before we can then progress to being able to move towards that sense of love and belonging and begin to experience friendship, intimacy, that sense of connection with other people. And as that then grows, it leads us then to find a sense of self-worth, self-value, self-esteem being built up. We find respect, recognition. And when all those things are in place, it actually helps us to reach that pinnacle of being actually able to achieve our dreams. That's the theory. But the barriers we have to knowing safety and security are often when those needs get challenged. And how we respond to those needs being challenged is often reflective of our experiences. And that can then relate to how we relate to God. So, for example, we might feel that we've got to fix it ourselves because we can't trust God to come through. That might be our experience. In our Jesus story, where we're looking at Jesus revealing the Father's nature, in John chapter 7 and 8, we saw that Jesus was at the Feast of Tabernacles when he was talking about being the source of living water and how the religious leaders were rejecting him. We then see them trying to trap him by bringing a woman caught in adultery and quoting the law, the religious law, the Torah, to Jesus. And if he really is a rabbi, he'd never want to go against the Torah. So they set him up with this sort of no-win trap, trying to catch him out. And we see that Jesus' reaction seeks to protect this woman who's been caught in adultery. Let's not lose sight of the fact that she had been caught. And so clearly she was in a place where she was being exposed. Her status as a woman at the time would leave her effectively as a second-class citizen, able to be mistreated. But it takes two to tango, and they hadn't brought the man, they'd only brought the woman. There were so many things wrong in this account. So here they are. I mean, Leviticus and Deuteronomy were quite clear that if somebody was caught in adultery, you needed to bring both people before them. So they hadn't fulfilled their own law in doing it. But they're sort of setting up this trap, because if Jesus had said, right, she should be stoned, they could report him to the Roman authorities because they weren't allowed to execute people. And if he'd said, no, don't do that, then they could have accused him of not fulfilling the law. So Jesus is in this sort of no-win situation where he decides to write in the dirt. One by one, the religious leaders disappear until it's just Jesus and the woman left. And he looks and says, where are your accusers? It takes two people to accuse somebody. Where are they? And she says, they're gone. And Jesus says, well, I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. Jesus, in his acts, has protected this woman at her point of vulnerability. for many of us, we can probably identify with that sense of feeling unsafe at times, where decisions we've made, situations that we find ourselves in, where we end up feeling very unsafe. It's really important that we realise that we're in a relationship with the living God, who, whilst we might find ourselves in risky situations, we have a Father who loves us and will protect us. He promises to keep in perfect peace those whose mind is set on him. The promise for us is that if we're in a relationship with God, when we face difficulties, when we face challenges, we know that he's with us, we know that he's available, we know that he's present. And to know that he will protect us emotionally, spiritually, and that with a destiny in heaven, whatever happens, we can't lose.